My son, wrote he to him, when I commanded as general-in-chief in the Venetian states before the Treaty of Campo Formio, the Abbe Cesarotti was presented to me at Padua. He was a man of merit, but poor. I received him in a distinguished manner and gave him a pension from the funds of the town, which paid to him as long as the country remained under my dependence. The Austrians who succeeded me will, however, certainly not have continued the pension to him. Learn, therefore, what has become of him, and if you find him out, let the pension be again paid to him with the arrears. 6. The emperor's health continued to improve. Third bath of salt water, in which Napoleon remained an hour, then went into the garden. He was weak and could hardly support himself. He sat down near the pond, which was the usual object and limit of his walks. He would remain there for hours together, amusing himself by following the motion of the fishes, throwing bread to them, studying their manners, taking an interest in their loves and their quarrels, and endeavoring with real anxiety to find out the relations that exist between us and them. He pointed them out to our observation, enumerated them to us, and often sent for us to communicate his remarks. Unfortunately, these little creatures were attacked with vertigo. They struggled, floated on the water, and perished one after the other. Napoleon was deeply affected by this circumstance. You see very well, said he, that there's a fatality attached to me. Everything I love, everything that belongs to me is immediately struck. Heaven and mankind unite to persecute me. From that moment, neither weather nor sickness could prevent him from going daily to visit them himself, and he told me to see whether there were no means of assisting and saving them. I could not conceive whence proceeded this singular mortality, and examine whether it was caused by the water. But the examination was too slow for the emperor's impatience, and he sent for me several times every day and dispatched me to ascertain whether others had perished. I went, and I must confess that I experienced a lively satisfaction when I was enabled to inform him that they were all alive. At last I discovered the cause of this accident which grieved Napoleon so much. We had cemented the bottom of the basin with a mast, each containing a great proportion of copper, which had poisoned the water and destroyed the fishes. We took out those that were still alive, put them in a tub. 7th, same state as yesterday. 4th bath of salt water. The emperor rode out in the park. 8th, the emperor continued better. 5th bath of salt water. Ride in the park in the calash. 9th and 10th. Napoleon was tolerably well on the preceding day, but he had passed the night reading newspapers and was extremely weak and languid. Bath of salt water, in which he remained half an hour. 11th and 12th, the state of the patient's health, which on the preceding day had been very unfavorable, had now become still worse. He was melancholy and oppressed, and experienced a great prostration of strength, disgust, a sensation of heaviness. The pain in the liver recommenced with renewed violence and extended towards the epigastric region. To these symptoms were superadded a rather acute pain along the spine and in the left shoulder, a stubborn state of costiveness, and a pulse low and nervous. Bath of salt water. Frictions on the spine and the left shoulder with a liniment composed of ammoniac, which produced an excellent result. 13th, the state of the emperor's strength was not much more favorable than yesterday. He felt an unconquerable drowsiness, but his pulse was regular. He took a little food, and at 2 p.m., his usual bath of salt water. Continuation of the frictions on the spine and the left shoulder. 14th, after the bath of salt water, the emperor felt stronger and in better spirits and ate with tolerable appetite. Frictions with the usual liniment. Napoleon again took up the subject of Italy and spoke at length of Originelle. He is the greatest geometrician that ever existed. Napoleon had treated him with great distinction, protected him, and recommended him to Brune when he went out on his expedition to Egypt. He had taken pleasure in testifying publicly the respect he entertained for his learning by writing to him immediately after he had entered Milan, thus honoring in his presence all those who cultivate sciences in Italy. Headquarters of Milan, 5th Prairial, 4th year of the Republic, 24th May, 1796. Bonaparte, General-in-Chief of the Army of Italy, to the citizen Originelle, astronomer. Sciences which honor the human mind, arts which embellish life and transmit great actions to posterity are entitled to special protection in republics. All men are genius. All those who have obtained a distinguished rank in the republic letters are Frenchmen. in whatever country they may be born. Learned men have not hitherto enjoyed in Milan the consideration due to them. Retired in their closets, they deemed themselves fortunate when kings and priests would condescend not to molest them. This is no longer the case. The mind has become free in Italy. Inquisitions, intolerance, and despots no longer exist in that country. I invite the learned to unite together and make known to me their views respecting the measures to be adopted to give to science and to the fine arts fresh vigor and a new existence. All those who choose to go to France will receive a distinguished welcome from the government. The French nation attaches a greater value to the acquisition of a learned mathematician, a painter of repute, or a man eminent in his profession, whatever it may be, than of the finest and most flourishing city. I therefore request, citizen, that you will be the medium through which these sentiments are conveyed to the men distinguished for their learning in Milan. Napoleon had preserved a most particular recollection of the celebrated man. He often spoke of him and took pleasure in relating the details of the first audience he had given him. He described Oriani's timidity and embarrassment at the sight of the stately retinue of the staff, which dazzled him, and the trouble he had had to restore to him confidence and composure. You are here with friends. We honor learning and only wish to show the respect we entertain for it. General, excuse me, but this pomp and splendor quite overpower me. I am not accustomed to witness them. He, however, recovered his self-possession and held with Napoleon a long conversation which produced in his mind a feeling of surprise, which he could not for a long time overcome. He was unable to conceive how it was possible to have acquired, at the age of 26, so much glory in science. The general was to him an inexplicable phenomenon. In praising the astronomer, the emperor mentioned the name of M. As for that man, sire, all the indulgence of your majesty. Yes, I know it. He was only faithful after victory. Berthier had often pointed him out to me, but who would not have become refractory to so weak a man as Berthier? When I asked him whether he would be the sport of a few busy intermeddling fellows, and whether he was not general-in-chief, no, he would answer, you know very well that even here at Genoa, I have not ceased to be the chief of your staff. 15th. The emperor took his usual bath, but the patient complained of a sensation of heaviness in the abdomen, and the pain proceeding from the liver extended to both shoulders. 16th, at 11 o'clock a.m., the emperor went down into the garden. He was weak and unable to walk. I supported him. He reached a chair and, seeming to recover after a long and painful effort, well, doctor, here I am at my last cast. No more energy or strength left. I bend under the load. I was going to answer him, but he was beforehand with me. I shall recover, of course. A doctor would sooner die than not assure a man at the last extremity that he's not ill. No, sire, but when the principle of life is still entire, it is no longer so. I'm going. I feel that my hour has come. Your Majesty has not reached the term of your existence. If you will only condescend to what? Take pills? Or a decoction of bark like at Mantua? No, sire, much less like at Venice. How so, Venice? Your corpses have then been constantly on the lookout? Probably they also told you the number of patients towards whom I had recourse to coercive measures. No, sire, I only heard of lint, vinegar, and camphorated brandy, which the Venetian authorities were to supply, and the generals of division caused to be administered. It was necessary to provide for the movable hospitals and to cure the sick and wounded. What an obstinate man with his eternal medicines. Doctor, we will think about it. He rose, and I supported him back to the house. He took a bath, in which he remained an hour. The atony became general. The pain in the liver was violent and extended to the epigastric region. The stomach was distended, producing frequent insipid rectations. Pulso and nervous. 17th. Napoleon's health nearly in the same state. At 10 o'clock he took a bath. 18th. The emperor was laboring under a deep depression of spirits and faculties. He experienced continual insipid rectations and complained of acute pain in the epigastric region. An issue was opened on the left arm, the incision for which did not produce a single drop of blood. The saltwater bath suspended for the present. 19th. The emperor went to look at his fishes, took a turn in the garden, and afterwards went out in the calash, but he returned back before he had reached the park. The bandages of the issue were deranged. I replaced them. The patient ate with tolerable appetite. The function of the stomach appeared less deranged. The emperor no longer had any strength or energy left. He was overpowered by the want of sleep and experienced a degree of lassitude which he would not overcome. Doctor, what a delightful thing rest is. The bed is become for me a place of luxury. I would not exchange it for all the thrones in the world. What an alteration! How fallen am I! I, whose activity was boundless, whose mind never slumbered, am now plunged in a lethargic stupor and must make an effort even to raise my eyelids. Sometimes dictated upon different subjects to 4 or 5 secretaries who wrote as fast as words could be uttered. But then I was Napoleon. I am no longer anything. My strength, my faculties forsake me. I do not live, I merely exist. 20th. The emperor was absorbed in profound melancholy and did not pronounce a single word. 21st and 22nd. Napoleon appeared still laboring under the same depression of spirits. He ate very little and consented to resume the saltwater baths. 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th. Same state as the preceding days, saltwater baths. 27th. The emperor was in a gloomy mood. I examined the issue and found in it a state of putrefaction. I washed it with wine mixed with tepid water, usual bath. 28th. Napoleon was extremely dejected and complained of a violent headache and of a pain in the liver accompanied by a sensation of heaviness. Such were his expressions. He took some food and found himself a little better. At 3 p.m. he ate with more than his usual appetite, and at 4 went out in the calash, but after having driven very slowly in the park for a short time, he was seized with violent nausea and soon after vomited all the food he had taken. State of stubborn costiveness, usual bath. The patient took 2 tonic pills.